A USC film student stood up during Clint Eastwood's guest lecture and said, "With all due respect, Mr. Eastwood, your directing style is outdated. Modern cinema has evolved beyond your simplistic approach." The auditorium went silent. What Clint did next shocked the entire class. And that student is now an Oscar-nominated director who still talks about that day. It was March 2014, and Clint Eastwood had agreed to do something he rarely did: a guest lecture at USC's School of Cinematic Arts. The invitation had come from an old friend who taught there, and Clint had finally said yes after years of polite refusals. He didn't particularly enjoy talking about his process. He preferred just doing the work, but he understood that students were hungry to learn from working professionals. The auditorium held about 200 students, all of them aspiring filmmakers in their early 20s. They'd grown up watching superhero blockbusters, CGI spectacles, and films shot entirely on green screen. Many of them had never seen a Clint Eastwood film all the way through. To them, he was a relic from their grandparents' era, a name they recognized but didn't really understand. Clint spoke for about 45 minutes about his approach to directing. He talked about simplicity, about trusting actors, about shooting fewer takes rather than more, about the importance of silence in film, about practical effects over digital manipulation. He was characteristically modest, often deflecting praise and crediting his collaborators. Then came the Q&A session. Hands shot up across the auditorium. The first few questions were respectful, standard film school fare about shot composition, working with actors, choosing projects. Clint answered each one thoughtfully, often with self-deprecating humor that made the students laugh. Then a hand went up in the middle section. The teaching assistant nodded at the student, a young man named Derek Chun. Derek stood up, and what he said next made the entire auditorium freeze. "Mr. Eastwood, with all due respect, I have to say that I find your directing style to be outdated. Modern cinema has evolved beyond your simplistic approach. The way you shoot, minimal coverage, simple blocking, relying on naturalistic performances. It might have worked in the 70s and 80s, but today's audiences expect more visual complexity, more dynamic camera movement, more stylistic innovation. Don't you think you're being left behind by not adapting to modern filmmaking techniques?" The silence that followed was profound. 200 students held their breath. The professors in the room exchanged glances. This wasn't a question, it was a public criticism, delivered with the confidence of someone who believed he understood cinema better than a 5-time Academy Award winner. Clint looked at Derek for a long moment. His expression didn't change. He didn't look angry or offended. He just looked curious, like he was studying something interesting. "What's your name?" Clint asked. "Derek. Derek Chun." "Derek, can you tell me what you're working on right now? What's your current student film about?" Derek seemed surprised by the question, but answered readily. "I'm directing my thesis film. It's a science fiction piece about artificial intelligence and consciousness. I'm using a lot of visual effects, complex camera rigs, non-linear narrative structure. It's meant to push the boundaries of what student films typically achieve." "Sounds ambitious," Clint said. "How many shooting days do you have scheduled?" 22 days, which is a lot for a student production, but the complexity of what I'm trying to achieve requires it." Clint nodded slowly. "And how many takes are you averaging per shot?" Derek hesitated slightly. "It varies. Probably 15 to 20 takes per setup. I want to make sure I capture every possible option in editing." "How's your relationship with your actors?" This question seemed to throw Derek off. "What do you mean? Do they trust you? Do they feel safe to take risks? Or are they exhausted and wondering why you need 20 takes of them walking through a door?" Some students in the audience laughed nervously. Derek's face flushed slightly. They're professional. They understand the vision." Clint shifted in his chair, getting more comfortable. "Derek, let me tell you about a film I made called American Sniper. Budget was about $60 million. We shot it in 42 days. Not 42 shooting days spread over 3 months. 42 consecutive days, 6-day weeks. That film made over $500 million worldwide and was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture." He paused, letting that sink in. "Now, I could have taken 80 days to shoot it. I could have done 20 takes of every shot. I could have used more complex camera movements, more visual effects, more of what you call stylistic innovation. But I didn't. You want to know why?" Derek nodded, suddenly less confident. "Because none of that serves the story. The story is about a man, a sniper, making impossible choices under unbearable pressure. The drama is in his face, in the silences between words, in what he can't say to his wife, in the weight he carries. If I distract the audience with fancy camera moves, I'm pulling them away from the emotional truth of the moment. And emotional truth is the only thing that matters. Clint leaned forward slightly. You called my approach simplistic. I call it clarity. There's a difference. Simplistic means you don't understand complexity. Clarity means you understand it so well that you can strip away everything that doesn't matter and show the audience exactly what does. The auditorium was completely silent now, but it was a different kind of silence. Students were leaning forward, hanging on every word. Let me ask you something, Derek. In your sci-fi film with all the visual effects and complex camera rigs, what's it about? Not the plot. What is it actually about? What do you want the audience to feel? Derek opened his mouth, then closed it. He started again. It's about the nature of consciousness. Whether AI can truly feel emotions or if they're just simulating them. Good. That's interesting. So every choice you make, every camera movement, every visual effect, every cut, should be serving that question. Is it? Or are you using those techniques because you think that's what modern cinema is supposed to look like? Derek didn't answer. He sat down slowly, his face troubled. But Clint wasn't done. And what he did next shocked everyone in the room. Derek, I want you to come work on my next film. If you're interested. The auditorium erupted in murmurs. Derek's head snapped up, his eyes wide. I'm serious, Clint continued. You're clearly passionate about cinema. You've got strong opinions. You're not afraid to challenge people, even in a room full of peers. Those are good qualities. But you're missing something important, and the only way to learn it is to be on a professional set and see how the choices get made in real time. He looked directly at Derek. I don't agree with your assessment of my work, but I respect that you had the courage to say it to my face. Most people with your opinion would just whisper it to their friends after I left. You stood up and said it out loud. That takes guts. Misguided guts, maybe, but guts nonetheless. The room laughed, and the tension broke. The position is production assistant, Clint clarified. It's not glamorous. You'll be getting coffee, moving equipment, doing whatever needs doing. But you'll be there for every decision, every shot, every moment when I choose to do something simple instead of something complex. And at the end, we'll talk about what you learned. Deal. Derek was stunned. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Eastwood. Don't thank me yet, Clint said with a slight smile. You might end up agreeing with yourself that my approach is outdated, but at least you'll know why I do it. What happened over the next 3 months became legendary at USC. Derek took a semester off to work on Clint's film, a drama about resilience and family called The Long Road, which would be released in 2015 to critical acclaim. Derek kept a journal during the production, and years later, he published excerpts that gave insight into what he learned. Day 3, Clint shot a crucial emotional scene in 2 takes. 2. I asked him why he didn't do more coverage. He said, I got what I needed in take 1. I did take 2 because the actor asked for it, and I trust my actors. Why would I ask them to cry 15 more times when they've already given me the truth? I realized I've been torturing my actors with endless takes because I'm insecure about my own vision. Day 12. Watch Clint spend an hour just talking to an actor before a difficult scene. Not rehearsing, just talking. About life, about the character's backstory, about what the moment means. When they finally shot it, the performance was so raw I got chills. Clint did 3 takes, used the second one, and moved on. The simplicity I criticized isn't simple at all. It's the result of deep preparation and trust. Day 27. Clint chose a static camera for a scene I would have shot with a dolly move. I asked him why. He said, the character is trapped in this moment. If the camera moves, it suggests freedom, possibility. Keeping it still makes the audience feel his paralysis. Every choice is intentional. What I called outdated is actually ruthlessly disciplined. By the end of the production, Derek had completely changed his approach to filmmaking. He went back to USC, reshot significant portions of his thesis film with a simpler, more focused style, and created something that won multiple student film awards and got him signed with a major talent agency. But the most important moment came on the last day of shooting. Clint called Derek over to watch the final shot of the film. It was a simple close-up of the lead actress, no camera movement, just her face as she processes a life-changing revelation. "This is the shot the whole film builds to," Clint said. "Everything we've done for 3 months comes down to this. Watch her eyes." They shot it once. The actress nailed it. Clint called cut, then turned to Derek. "Did we need 20 takes of that? Did we need a fancy camera move? Or did we just need an actress who understood her character, a director who trusted her, and a camera that stayed out of the way so the audience could see the truth in her eyes?" Derek had tears in his eyes. "We just needed the truth." "That's right. And here's what I want you to understand. Innovation for its own sake is masturbation. Real innovation comes from finding new ways to tell emotional truth. Sometimes that means using every tool in the toolbox. Sometimes it means using almost none of them. The question isn't, what's the most modern technique? The question is, what does this story need? If you can answer that question honestly, you'll make good films. If you can't, you'll make films that look impressive and feel empty. Derek Chin's career over the next decade proved that he'd learned the lesson. His first feature film, a small intimate drama about immigration, was made for under $2 million and shot in 30 days. It was nominated for Best Picture at the 2023 Academy Awards. He didn't win, but in his acceptance speech at the Spirit Awards, where he won Best Director, he told the story of challenging Clint Eastwood. "I stood up in front of 200 people and told one of the greatest filmmakers in history that he was outdated and simplistic," Derek said. "And instead of humiliating me, he gave me a job. Instead of defending himself, he taught me. I learned more in 3 months working for Clint Eastwood than in 4 years of film school. And the most important thing I learned was this: simplicity is not the absence of sophistication. Simplicity is sophistication that's been refined so completely that all the ego has been burned away and only the truth remains." The clip of that speech went viral. Film students around the world watched it, and many of them started questioning their own assumptions about what makes good cinema. USC started showing the footage of Derek's original question to Clint, which had been recorded, as part of their orientation for new students, along with Derek's later reflections on what he learned. Clint never publicly commented on the incident beyond what he said in that auditorium. But people who worked with him regularly noticed that he started taking on more production assistants from film schools, often specifically asking for students who think they know everything. His reasoning, he told one producer, was simple. The ones who think they know everything are the ones who are still curious enough to challenge their own assumptions. They just need someone to show them that filmmaking isn't about proving how smart you are. It's about being smart enough to get out of the way and let the story breathe. Today, Derek Chin teaches a class at USC called Clarity versus Complexity in Film. The first assignment is always the same. Shoot a scene in one take, with a static camera, using only natural light and performance. Most students hate it. Then they watch what they've created and they understand. Clint Eastwood didn't teach me modern filmmaking techniques, Derek tells his students. He taught me something more valuable. He taught me to ask why before every choice. Why this camera move? Why this cut? Why this effect? And if the answer is because it looks cool or because that's what modern films do, then it's the wrong choice. The only right answer is because it serves the emotional truth of the story. The story of the film student who challenged Clint Eastwood isn't about humiliation or vindication. It's about something rarer and more valuable. It's about a master craftsman who was secure enough in his own approach that criticism didn't threaten him, and generous enough to turn a challenge into a teaching moment. And it's about a young filmmaker who had the courage to speak his mind, the humility to recognize when he was wrong, and the wisdom to learn from someone who showed him that sometimes the most innovative thing you can do is get out of your own way and let the story tell itself. If this story of ego meeting mastery, of challenge transforming into mentorship, and of learning that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Share this with any young filmmaker who thinks flashy techniques matter more than emotional truth, or with anyone who's learned more from being wrong than from being right. Have you ever challenged someone and had them teach you instead of defeat you? Share your story in the comments. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more incredible true stories about the difference between looking impressive and being authentic.